Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is 2:02 by my clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to our annual Cronin Finalist webinar series. Each year, we at NASPO host this Cronin webinar series for procurement excellence, which honors innovation and excellence in state procurement. The award program seeks to recognize outstanding procurement initiatives and submissions for the awards, which are a means to disseminate and to encourage adoption of breakthrough initiatives by other states. Submissions for these awards are scored based on 4 important criteria: innovation, transferability, service improvement, and cost reduction. By excelling in these key areas, Cronin Awards and finalists help create opportunities for improving the procurement function nationwide. This webinar series is an important part of sharing information and ideas for professionals across the country. And like I said, I thank everybody for joining us today. Just a couple of reminders before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, and I'm going to make it available on our YouTube channel, on our website, in the next couple of days after we conclude. Because we are recording, I've muted everybody on your line, so if you have a question, there will be a question and answer time at the end. There is also a question and answer tab down at the bottom of your screen. If you click on that, you can submit questions throughout the presentation, and myself or Stephen, our speaker today, will be happy to address those at the designated time. For those of you that would like to receive UPPCC certification credit for attending this webinar, you can email me, Kevin Miner, at kminer@naspo.org. That's kminer@naspo.org, and I would be happy to send you a certification. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker today, Stephen Davis. Stephen is a Division Director, Relationship Management in the state of Michigan, and he will be presenting on their finalist submission, The Unrealized Transformative Power of Internally Focused KPIs in Public Procurement. Stephen, take it away.
Thank you, Kevin. With me here, I also have our Technology and Reporting Manager, Mohammed Gabriel. Mohammed, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody.
All right. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We'll try to make this informative and not boring. So real quickly, key performance indicators. You may know them by different names, metrics, different scorecards. What you call them, I don't think necessarily matters as much as doing them correctly. I've been with the state for over 20 years, and this is definitely not a new idea, but I've not seen it implemented truly effectively previously. We started our KPI program back in early 2017, in the early 2017 fiscal year, and we currently track 39 different key performance indicators, everything from the percentage of our solicitations that meet their service level agreements, to our employee attrition rate, and each area of our office has their own KPIs too, which I'll get into the importance of that a little bit later. As I mentioned, KPIs aren't necessarily a new idea. Doing them right can be tricky though. So kind of sketched out how we've done this in a nice little user-friendly formula. The first part of which is talking about your goals, which is the easiest part, but should still have some thought put into it. Right here are our current goals, customer satisfaction being our highest one, listed in order of priority, followed by employee, policy and compliance, and so on. Now, what I would want to say here is that you really want to make sure that whatever you say that your goals are truly are the highest priority of the office. And the reason I say that is because I think a lot of times we may get sidetracked on what we think people want from us, as opposed to what they really want out of us. So I would, when you're at this point, step back and ask what your stakeholders really care about, and what could you do that would make your customers view you differently. Moving on to measurable results. This is probably the most difficult part, I would say, because accurately measuring things is not always easy. What we've done in this area is we put together a dedicated technology and reporting team that are our experts in all things data. We also, over a couple-year period, centralized pretty much all of our data into a single relational database, which allows us to do all sorts of reporting that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do. The last really important thing in this arena is making sure that your service level agreements with your customers, especially on timeframes, are realistic. You don't want to be measuring yourself against a faulty yardstick. And some things in this area that you really want to make sure you do is you always want to identify who your data experts are. Who are the people that at the end of the day are going to have to pull these numbers together? And before you set any KPIs in stone, you want to talk with them and see if the ideas you have are feasible, how much effort it's going to take to measure them. A lot of times, we don't realize that the data that we would need to implement a KPI isn't actually already being captured. And so you want to involve those people right from the beginning to make sure that you don't come up with grand plans that can't be implemented. Related to that is to start simple. Figure out what you already can measure effectively and start there. It's okay if you just have a few at first. You also want to make sure that you include a wide variety of people in setting your targets to make sure that they're reasonable both from your customer's perspective and your employee's perspective. And then lastly, just to make sure that your KPIs are lined up with your goals. Because sometimes in the effort to come up with measures, you might end up with some things on the list that don't really measure anything you really care about. The next area to focus is your employees and getting their buy-in. Because if your employees don't see value in your KPI program, it's, like most things, it's not going to go very far. I think the most important thing here that we've done is, to the greatest extent we could, we integrated the collection of our data into work that was performed every day, so that there wasn't a lot of extra effort on the part of our frontline staff to measure the KPIs. Just because you ask people to do a lot more for something, they're going to be, just by nature, be more suspicious of it. At least that's my experience. Next, I've already talked about getting input from all areas and different people on targets, so that people feel that they were heard and they have some ownership in what your goals are. And then lastly, you have to make clear to your employees that the KPIs are indicators of performance, but they aren't conclusive. There are many reasonable explanations why someone might have some bad KPI results. They may have a particularly difficult client, or there may have been a project where something out of their control, delayed it. So you never want to use the KPIs in a black and white way to discipline employees or try to say that their performance is bad. But like I said, it is an indicator. So it's a place to start a conversation. And like I said, trying to make sure that there's as little extra work for your frontline employees as possible is kind of a key here. It's not always completely possible sometimes they are going to have to do some things, but try to minimize it as much as possible. And another thing is that when you have the individual results, don't publish those for everyone to see, because you don't want to use this as a way to shame for performers. It's like I said, there could be reasonable explanations, for their bad KPI results, and there could also be other things going on with that person that you don't necessarily want to shame them publicly with. And lastly is to talk about your KPI performance and the trends often. If employees see you talking about things often, they're going to realize that's important to you, and it kind of then helps become part of the everyday culture. The last part of our formula is visibility. If you've put all this effort into measuring KPIs, they're not going to do a whole lot of good if no one is seeing them. And that sometimes does happen. We put them in a drawer and don't do much with them. One of the first things that we've done with our KPIs is that they're always on display in our office. We have a TV in the lobby area that rotates through all of the different KPIs so that people can see in near real time what our performance is. And people actually do stop and look at it quite often. People in our office and people outside as well. Next, and this is a little more traditional, is we use this data to put together quarterly reports, not just for our higher level executives, but also for all of our agencies. The state of Michigan has, depending on what definition you use, about 24 or 25 agencies that are our direct customers, and we issue reports to all of them showing our detailed performance for them. And this has been really, really important, because when we have face-to-face meetings with these customers, if they have a perception of our performance that doesn't line up with the numbers and with the data, it's a really good place to have that conversation. And it is definitely helpful there. Another thing that we've done is put together customer dashboards so that they can see where their projects are along the process, and we've tried to make that as user-friendly as possible. Just because people always want to know where things are, and we've gotten kind of used to being able to see things as they progress at every different step. We haven't stopped there, though. One of the newest things that we've started doing is working on interactive Power BI dashboards. And I'm actually going to let Mohammed speak to this.
So again, just adding to what Steve said earlier, the most important component is having the data being relational. And so what we did is it's the same data that is being utilized in the reports, in the other dashboard, and in the project management tool that we use in the office. So basically, while people are managing their projects, that data is automatically feeding in our dashboards and our reports. So I'm going to show you how relational this dashboard is. So by just selecting the type of solicitation that you want to see the data for, you just select on it, and everything will filter accordingly, showing you the data related to that specific solicitation type. So the Net Promoter Score, hard savings, and the percentage like that we met the SLA, and if we completed the new project before the current contract expires, and all that will change accordingly by just changing the different type. And you can navigate back in time and see, like, okay, I want to see what happened in 2018. And all the numbers will change and show you, like, per month for fiscal year 2018, what happened, what was our averages, how the percentage that we met the SLA, and the hard savings that we have achieved. And it doesn't stop there. Basically, we wanted to allow the users to see the details of what's happening inside each type. So basically, you can navigate to, this is a dashboard, and it would allow you to navigate to a report inside it. So by navigating to the report, you can see details, and it would allow you to drill down. So basically, if I select direct solicitation as a type, and I can expand this and see all the details there, and then I can drill down within that type and see what was done. Like basically, you can see, so these are the direct solicitations that we did, and how many of them met the SLA. So we did a total of 4, so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one did not meet the SLA. Within that, also, we created multiple dashboards and multiple kind of functions with that. So basically, within this function, you can type in questions and ask questions about specific events that are taking place. So I'm going to allow Steve to write in a question, like, you know, if you want to see, you know.
Well, if someone wants to know what the spend you have with vendors in, say, Detroit, which is the major city here in Michigan.
So as you can see, he just used common language to ask a question, saying, okay, what is the spend in Detroit? And like it would show him based on the spend size, bubbles allowing him to see even like, you know, what is the vendor there, how many contracts we have with that specific supplier or vendor, and what is like, you know, the exact location of that vendor. And now we're doing that so that you can do that for the whole country, basically. So you can ask any question of the data, and we're indexing the data so that it would answer your question using common language. So you don't need SQL or to know like any kind of programming language to do that. You can just ask questions using common language. And again, this is like still in the emphases of this project, but we're building more of that stuff. And it's quite interesting because it makes it easier for people to gain access to the data, because always there's the middleman. So if you have any questions, you would need to ask me or my team for it. But now we're allowing our users to get access to that data. So they're no longer afraid of getting into like getting the answers themselves. And within that, also we provide other dashboards in here, so you can see that we can like have the details of the projects that are being done. Like you can see the details of, I want to see the stuff that didn't meet the service level agreement. So I get like a list of all the projects that didn't meet the service level agreement, and like, you know, the related scores for those, Net Promoter Scores. And then we have a dedicated dashboard to show the Net Promoter Score and the details, which agency submitted it, what was the result, did they leave any comments about it. And we also track all the delegated authority requests that we get from agencies, and we have it in a way so that we can see if we're meeting that service level agreement for that too. Right, and I think that's it for me.
All right, thank you very much, Mohammed. Okay, so basically the end of our presentation here is to talk about, so what did we get for this effort? And just some use our own data. Since we started implementing this program, our request for proposals have met their SLA targets at an increased rate. We went from 25% to 62%. Our Net Promoter Score has gone up from 60 to 75. And we've saved a little over $14 million. And that isn't to say that those things are necessarily a direct result from these KPIs, but we couldn't have even begun to conceive of these changes without being able to actually measure them. One thing we found is that when you actually come with hard data, actual numbers, people listen to you. They don't necessarily listen to, well, people don't listen to anecdotal evidence. If you go to your higher up bosses and say, oh, our customers are happier, they don't really have any reason necessarily to believe you. But if you can show data to them and explain how you've reached that, people tend to accept it for what it is. And so it's a great tool for changing the perception of procurement throughout your organization. And yeah, anything you want to add about that, Mohammed?
A lot of times we get questions of like, how good are we? and you wouldn't know how good are you or how bad are you unless you have numbers to show the transition. So a lot of times, I remember when we first started and we were working on these, it was like, are we taking too long to do RFPs? And the answer was like, we don't really know. There is a perception that it's taking too long, but we don't really know. And also, like, thinking about things doesn't necessarily mean that they are true, because sometimes the perception is based on the odd ones, the outliers that everybody speaks about. So one project took 2 years to finish, but that was an outlier. Most of them were not that, didn't take that long. So having the data is, I believe, makes things realistic, and then people can see them and feel them. So if you're making any change, you have the data to support it, because people will not support change unless you have the numbers to show that the change is needed.
Okay, so with that, I guess if there are questions, I see one in the chat. I'm sorry I didn't get to that before this, but it says, are employees recording dates and statuses manually, or do you have a workflow type system that captures work as it's being completed? Currently, they are entering that manually in our project management tool, which is part of our central database. Mohammed, if you want to add to that.
So a lot of that, we automated a lot of that. So basically, we get a project, the manager will assign the project to the employee. So basically, you have a buyer, the buyer gets a notification saying you have this project has been assigned to you. So they go there, all the milestones and all the current task is auto-populated, and all the dates, it gives them an initial plan based on the service level agreement that we have, and it's auto-populated. And then the expectation is, because we are managing this solicitation, that the buyer, the responsible staff, would be inputting the statuses on this project. And that's where we get our data. So a lot of it is automated and assigned to the individual, and then they just start updating the status of that project.
All right, hopefully that answers that question. Does anyone else have any?
Remember, you can also post questions in the question and answer tab down at the bottom. Do we have anyone else that has any questions?
Okay, I have another one that wants to know how change management went with our employees. And I think that question requires a little bit more context. Just this last year, we finished up a 5-year improvement plan that really changed a lot throughout our office. We had a lot of upheaval and a lot of changes. And I think anytime that happens, obviously this KPI program was part of that. And you go through the typical cycle of people being scared or resistant at first, but then tentatively seeing that the sky is not falling, and then actually embracing it. One of the things that I've actually been kind of shocked by is when we've argued to lengthen service level agreements or in some other way relax our goals, we've gotten resistance from the people actually being measured, because they want to be held to an even higher standard, which, like I said, that really shocked me. But we've gotten to a point where people, I think, really take pride in the results that we show. I believe that is what Kevin said as far as getting credit for UPPCC. I believe he said to contact him.
Yes, you can contact me. That is the correct email address too.
Okay.
And Stephen, it seems that we have 2 more questions in the question and answer box.
Yep, I just saw them. Okay, so why did we choose Power BI as our visualization tool? Mohammed, I'll let you take that one.
We use Microsoft products for basically everything. And because it's easy to integrate Power BI with all other stuff that we're using, so we have some lists that are on SharePoint, we have other lists that are on like some are on spreadsheets, others in databases, and since Power BI is part of Microsoft package that we have, so it's easily integrated with everything else that we have. Also, like in terms of query language that it uses, I don't remember the exact name, but it's not SQL. It has a different language. I don't remember the exact name. It's pretty similar to like, the same, the combination of VBA and SQL that we use in our other programs, like using Microsoft package. So it was the kind of the obvious choice for us.
Yeah, and it's something we get included as part of the standard package of software that all employees with the state of Michigan have access to. That's one of the things actually I didn't mention as a tip is, more than likely you have some pretty powerful or at least useful tools at your disposal already that you might not know a whole lot about, such as Power BI and SharePoint, that really can be used to do quite a bit. And I always suggest before running out and looking to pay for something, to seeing what's already available. And so so far we're pretty happy with Power BI. So hope that answers your questions. Okay, the next one is about how we measure employee and customer satisfaction. So customer satisfaction, we use the Net Promoter Score, which is kind of a cross industry standard for measuring customer satisfaction. It's just one question. And what is it exactly, Mohammed?
So basically, whenever we complete a project, all the stakeholders listed on that project receives an email from us saying that the following project has been completed for you, and complete the survey, please. And it's one question from 0 to 10. Based on their answer, we take their answer and divide it into 3 different categories. First is from 0 to 6, which what we call detractors. The second is 7 and 8, which are passive, and 9 and 10 are promoters. And then we take the total count, and then we divide the total count of promoters minus detractors divided on the total count of all the surveys that we received, and we multiply it by 100, and then you get a score of minus 100 to 100, basically. And the standard, like for the industry, is 50 is a good NPS score to have.
And that is the cool thing about using the Net Promoter Score, is you can actually measure your customer satisfaction against well-known companies even, because pretty much everybody, especially any customer-facing organization out in the private sector, uses Net Promoter Scores. So you really get a good feel for how you're performing. For employee satisfaction, we have a couple different things. One, we do measure our attrition rate to see what our turnover is. Classically, 10% is considered good, but at one point back in 2012, we had an attrition rate that was over 30%. I think it was 36% if I remember correctly. And we've gotten that down below 10% actually. And then separate from our KPI program, we also have an annual, quite extensive employee survey that we also can mine data from that asks a wide range of questions designed to see which one of your employees are invested and if they're planning to stick around. So that's how we look at employee satisfaction. Okay, does anyone else have any questions for us?
Does anybody else have any questions?
Oh, actually, I just had one more. Are we pulling data from any other sources systems in addition to the data in our project management system? And if yes, do we have a centralized database that's populated by all of the sources, or do we import data into the system where the project management data is? I'm once again going to turn this one over to Mohammed.
So we have other sources, but for the project management portion and the portion that you see that you saw on Power BI, all that comes from the same source. And all that, the same data is being utilized in various ways, but all that goes into the same source and is inputted initially by the managers who receive the requisitions through our ERB, Sigma, and then they input it into our project management tool, and then they assign it to the individual buyers, and the buyers then start updating that information. And then that same information automatically updates all the other systems that we have. Like, it's not systems, basically. It updates our database, they update our database. Our database updates Power BI, updates our reports, and updates our pizza tracker, the one that Steve showed you earlier.
And then
project tracker.
And then also you import spend data from our ERP system.
We do, but it doesn't populate into this portion of the...
Well, no, but they may in general.
Oh, yeah, in general, we do import from multiple sources, actually. We have a legacy system called Main, so we import the spend from there, and we import the spend from the new ERP system, and we combine those so that our buyers would have a full picture showing the spend throughout the life of the contract instead of just the past year and a half.
And I think getting all of that data into one place in a relational manner is probably one of the most important steps, because people always have, once you start getting data, people start getting more and more detailed questions, and they want to know, the relationship between how long an RFP takes and maybe contractor performance, or they start asking those deeper questions. And if your data isn't relational, there's no way to actually pull anything for it.
And if I may add to that, also like having people who understands data, because a lot of times you would have some people might have the perception that they understand data, but when bringing in some people who have understanding relational databases, relational data, how it works, what you can create out of that, and sometimes it's really using simple tools. So in our office, we didn't pay any external parties to kind of implement anything for us. All these metrics, we implemented them internally by just understanding our data and how it works and how we can utilize it.
Okay.
That was a great question. Do we have any more? These are all great questions. Any more questions for our team here? Okay. I'm not seeing any more. This webinar is also being recorded, so if you'd like to perhaps look over it again later, if you come up with any more questions, you can email myself. I'm happy to get you in touch. I'm sure Stephen is happy to answer more questions if some come up later. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. I'd really like to thank Michigan and our two presenters. You guys did a wonderful job. Thank you very much. For everybody that attended, remember to email me at kminer@naspo.org if you want to receive the certification credit for attending today's webinar. And like I said, I'll be posting this to our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. So with that being said, if there's no more questions, we'll wrap it up. So Stephen, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks everybody.